The first cryopod burst open. Frigid vapor spilled across the metal deck as Ralph Henry lurched forward, gasping, his atrophied muscles burning, his head throbbing, vision blurred. Alarms shrieked, red lights flashed. He blinked hard, trying to focus. Where was he? What the hell was happening? "Captain Henry, please proceed to the command center immediately," a calm, feminine voice echoed through unseen speakers. "I will explain everything once you arrive." Ralph staggered to his feet, steadying himself against the frosted glass of the pod. Prometheus. The ship's name surfaced through the mental fog. The experimental colony transport, the sociological mission. How long had he been asleep? He stumbled down the cavernous cryo bay, passing row after row of sealed pods, each one hissing and beeping as the reanimation process began. 10,000 colonists, scientists, soldiers, engineers, families, all waking up to an uncertain future. The holographic avatar of a woman materialized as Ralph entered the command center. "I am Aina, the ship's intelligence," she said. "I'm afraid I have troubling news. 2 centuries have passed since Prometheus left Earth orbit." She showed him fragmented records of a galactic war, of first contact with the Benzites, of Earth engulfed in alien fire. The war lasted mere hours once human forces joined the battle. Our primitive weapons, we don't know how, but they decimated the enemy fleet. Ralph scanned the data, his mind reeling. In the aftermath, Earth hadn't unified. It had fractured. Benzite tech in the hands of power-hungry factions. Hyper-capitalism run amok. Corruption, starvation, chaos. "Your leadership is needed now more than ever," Aina urged. "Assemble a team from the Prometheus's best and brightest. Bring order to the frontier. If humanity remains divided, if we succumb to greed, this may be our last chance to earn a place on the galactic stage." He gripped the edge of the console as the weight of 200 years pressed down upon him. Everything he'd known, everyone he'd loved, gone. In their place, a strange new world, teetering on the razor's edge between ascension and oblivion. The fate of the human race, he now understood, rested in his hands. Behind him, the first cryopod locks snapped open. Ralph strode into the crowded cryo bay, his gaze sweeping over the sea of groggy, confused faces. "I need the following individuals to report to the command center immediately," he barked, his voice cutting through the din. "Dr. Eliza Novak, Sergei Volkov, Aidan Kim, Raul Espinoza." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as the chosen few stepped forward, their expressions a mix of trepidation and perseverance. Ralph nodded curtly and led them back to the command center, where Aina's avatar flickered and pulsed. "I've analyzed the data from the surface," Aina said, her voice echoing through the room. "The situation is dire. We must act quickly if we hope to restore order and unite humanity." Ralph turned to his hastily assembled team. "You heard her. We're taking a shuttlecraft down to Old Chicago. Gear up and meet me in the hangar bay in 10. The shuttle descended through the ashen skies, weaving between the skeletal remains of once mighty skyscrapers. As they touched down in the ruins of the old city, the scale of the devastation became clear. Crumbling buildings, rusting vehicles, and piles of debris stretched as far as the eye could see. They set up a makeshift base in the husk of an ancient subway station, Raul immediately getting to work on hacking into the local networks. His fingers flew over the keys, his face bathed in the sickly glow of the screens. "I'm in," he said after a moment, his voice tight. "And you're not going to believe what I found." The team gathered around as Raul pulled up a series of files, each one more damning than the last. Nebula Corp, it seemed, had been conducting horrific experiments on augmented workers, pushing the limits of human endurance and morality in the name of profit. "We need to shut them down," Ralph growled, his fists clenching at his sides. "Sergei, you're with me. We're going to hit that research facility and free those test subjects." The raid was a blur of gunfire and screams, the stench of blood and burned flesh hanging heavy in the air. They fought their way into the heart of the facility, Sergei taking down the guards with ruthless efficiency. In the end, they stood victorious, surrounded by the broken bodies of their enemies and the grateful faces of the liberated workers. But even as they celebrated their victory, Dr. Novak made a chilling discovery. The technology they had captured, the same tech that Nebula Corp had been using to oppress and exploit, was not of alien origin at all. It was human, developed in secret long before the war. "They're lying to us," she said, her voice trembling with anger and disbelief. "The corporations. They're using this tech to control us, to keep us divided and weak." Ralph felt a cold fury building in his chest. They had been played for fools, manipulated by the very entities they had sworn to fight. But they would not be so easily defeated. As they began to plan their next move, word of their actions spread like wildfire through the slums and alleyways of old Chicago. The people rallied around them, a grassroots resistance rising from the ashes of the old world. Aiden reached out to the leaders of the movement, forging alliances and coordinating strikes against the corporate overlords. But their success had not gone unnoticed. In the gleaming towers of Gene Tech Industries, Maximilian Strom seethed with rage. These terrorists, these rebels, threatened everything he had built. They would be crushed, their bodies broken, and their spirits shattered. He summoned Talon, his most lethal creation, a genetically engineered killing machine with a taste for blood. "Find them," he snarled, his eyes glinting with malice. "Find them and destroy them." The attack came without warning, a blur of claws and teeth and raw, savage power. Ralph and his team fought back with everything they had, but Talon was relentless, a force of nature made flesh. Sergei fell first, his chest torn open by razor-sharp talons. The others fought on, but it was a losing battle. In the end, they managed to drive Talon back, but the cost was high. Sergei lay bleeding on the ground, his life slipping away with each ragged breath. As Ralph knelt beside him, the old soldier grabbed his hand, his eyes fierce and bright. "Don't let them win," he rasped, his voice a hoarse whisper. "Don't let them break you. Fight on, Captain. Fight on." Ralph nodded, tears stinging his eyes. He would fight on, for Sergei, for the resistance, for the future of humanity itself. He would not rest until the corporations were brought to their knees, until the alien threat was vanquished once and for all. The war had only just begun, and Ralph would see it through to the bitter end, whatever it takes. Ralph knelt beside Sergei's battered form, the old soldier's ragged breathing echoing through the makeshift infirmary. Dr. Novak worked tirelessly, her hands steady as she applied regenerative gel to the worst of his wounds. "He's stabilizing," she reported, wiping sweat from her brow, "but he'll need time to recover fully." A soft chime cut through the tense atmosphere. Raoul's eyes widened as he stared at his datapad. "Captain, you need to see this." Ralph strode over, his brow furrowing as he read the encrypted message flickering across the screen. The sender's identity was masked, save for a single word: Orion. "What is this?" Ralph muttered, scanning the text. His eyes widened as he absorbed the implications. "Get everyone in here. Now!" Minutes later, the team huddled around Raoul's workstation as he pulled up the decrypted transmission. A distorted voice filled the room, each word landing like a hammer blow. "Captain Henry, I am Orion. What you're about to hear will shatter everything you believe about your mission and the state of human civilization." The revelations came in rapid succession. The Prometheus, a sociological experiment. The advanced tech on Earth, human in origin. A hidden interstellar society, watching from the shadows. "Your actions have not gone unnoticed," Orion continued. "Continue to dismantle the corporate power structure. Our agents on Earth stand ready to assist." Silence fell as the transmission ended. Ralph's mind raced, piecing together the implications. "We need a new target," he said finally. "Something big enough to cripple Gene Tech's operations." Raoul's fingers flew across the keyboard. "I might have something. Gene Tech's CEO, Maximilian Strom, is hosting a gala on his private orbital station. It's a showcase for their latest gene editing tech." "Perfect," Ralph nodded. "We infiltrate, gather intel, and expose their operations. Aiden, you'll take point on distracting Strom. Raoul, Dr. Novak, you'll breach their secure labs." The team spent days preparing, fabricating identities, and securing the necessary equipment. As they boarded the shuttle bound for the orbital station, Ralph felt the weight of their mission pressing down on him. The station's atrium glittered with opulence. a stark contrast to the ruins below. Aiden mingled effortlessly with the crowd, his charm drawing Strom into conversation. Across the room, Raoul and Dr. Novak slipped away, bypassing security protocols with practiced ease. "These machines," Dr. Novak whispered as they entered the lab, "they're far beyond anything I've ever seen." "Focus," Raoul muttered, his fingers dancing across a terminal. "We need to... Wait, look at this." Dr. Novak leaned in, her face paling as she read the files. "The Chimera program? They're splicing alien DNA with human subjects?" A new voice cut through their shocked whispers. "And they must be stopped." They whirled to see a woman standing in the doorway, her dark eyes burning with intensity. "I'm Zara Kadir," she said. "I used to work for Gene Tech. I can help you expose their crimes, but I need protection." Before they could respond, alarms blared through the station. Raoul's comm crackled to life, Ralph's voice tight with urgency. "We've been made! Get to the extraction point now!" They raced through the corridors, Zara in tow. The atrium erupted into chaos as Talon burst onto the scene, flanked by augmented security forces. Zero-G combat training kicked in as Ralph and his team engaged, ricocheting off walls and grappling with their pursuers. "The shuttle!" Aiden shouted, gesturing toward an open docking port. They fought their way through, the team barely making it aboard before Raoul punched the release. As they pulled away from the station, Ralph saw Zara's anguished face pressed against the viewport. She hadn't made it. Back on Earth, the team pored over the stolen data. The Chimera program's scope was staggering, an army of human-alien hybrids poised to conquer Earth's remaining free settlements. Orion's next transmission brought even graver news. A Benzite task force, drawn by the presence of their captured kin, was en route to Earth. If they discovered the extent of Gene Tech's experiments, the consequences could be catastrophic. "We have to shut down the Chimera program," Ralph declared, his voice heavy with the weight of their task. "And we need to get Zara out." As plans for the assault on Gene Tech's Mega Tokyo stronghold took shape, Ralph gazed out at the ruined skyline. The fate of Earth, of humanity itself, hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking. Ticking, they had to act fast. Ralph's fingers flew across the holographic interface, sending encrypted messages to resistance cells scattered across the globe. Within hours, the New Frontier Alliance coalesced, a patchwork army united by a common purpose. Orion's operatives emerged from the shadows, their advanced tech giving the resistance a crucial edge. As dawn broke over the smog-choked skyline of Mega Tokyo, Ralph surveyed the assembled force from the roof of a crumbling skyscraper. Aiden's voice crackled through the comm. "The Yakuza and Neo Triad have agreed to a temporary ceasefire. They'll provide air support for the initial assault." Ralph nodded grimly. "Let's move." The attack unfolded like a deadly symphony. Resistance fighters swarmed Gene Tech's outer defenses, drawing fire and attention. Raoul hunched over a makeshift terminal in an abandoned subway car, his fingers a blur as he systematically dismantled the arcology's digital fortifications. "We're in!" he shouted, sweat beading on his brow. "Outer defenses are down!" Sergei led the charge, his weathered face set in fierce dedication as he and a contingent of Alliance soldiers breached the perimeter. The sound of gunfire and explosions filled the air as they pushed deeper into the sprawling complex. Meanwhile, in a hidden lab beneath the city, Dr. Novak and the newly rescued Zara worked feverishly. Holographic displays flickered with complex genetic sequences as they raced to develop a countermeasure against the Chimera super soldiers. "If we can target this specific gene sequence," Zara muttered, her eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep, "we might be able to neutralize their augmentations without harming standard human augments." Inside the arcology, Ralph led a strike team through winding corridors and vast atriums. They encountered increasingly fierce resistance as they neared the heart of the facility. Prototype chimeras, their bodies twisted amalgams of human and alien DNA, hurled themselves at the intruders with inhuman strength and ferocity. A blur of motion caught Ralph's eye. Talon, Gene Tech's most lethal creation, had entered the fray. The augmented assassin moved with terrifying speed and precision, cutting down Alliance soldiers with ease. Sergei stepped forward, his cybernetic arm whirring as he clenched his fist. Go, he growled to Ralph. I'll handle this one. The two titans clashed in a brutal dance of augmented flesh and military-grade alloys. Sergei's decades of combat experience were put to the test against Talon's raw power and animal instinct. Blood and hydraulic fluid mingled on the polished floor as they tore into each other. Ralph pressed on, fighting his way to Strom's sanctum at the top of the arcology. He burst through the final set of doors to find the CEO hunched over a glowing console, his fingers poised over a pulsing red button. "It's over, Strom," Ralph said, leveling his weapon at the man's head. Strom turned, his eyes wild with a mixture of fear and manic glee. "You don't understand," he hissed. "The chimeras were to be our salvation. With them, humanity would have crushed the alien powers and claimed our rightful place among the stars." "You're insane," Ralph spat. "You would destroy everything to fulfill your twisted vision?" Strom's hand inched towards the self-destruct button. "If I can't have it, no one—" The doors burst open again. A group of suited executives, led by Aiden, rushed in. "Stand down, sir," one of them said, her voice shaking. "We can't support this anymore." Strom's face contorted with rage, but before he could act, Ralph tackled him to the ground. As they struggled, Aiden quickly disabled the self-destruct sequence. In the aftermath, as Alliance forces secured the arcology, Ralph's comm crackled to life. "It worked!" Dr. Novak's excited voice rang out. "The countermeasure is neutralizing the chimeras without harming other augments. We're distributing it now." But their victory celebration was cut short as a new alarm blared through the complex. Ralph rushed to a viewport, his heart sinking as he saw a fleet of sleek alien ships descending through the atmosphere. The Benzites had arrived. The Benzite fleet hung in the sky like a looming storm, their ships sleek and alien against Earth's atmosphere. Ralph's mind raced, weighing their limited options against this overwhelming force. "Captain," Orion's voice crackled through the comm, urgent and clear. "We need to talk. Now." Within hours, Ralph found himself aboard a stealth shuttle, hurtling towards the edge of the solar system. The derelict station loomed before them, a relic of a bygone era drifting silently in the Kuiper Belt. As they docked, Ralph's hand instinctively went to his sidearm. The airlock hissed open, revealing a figure shrouded in shadow. "Captain Henry," the man said, stepping into the light. "I'm Cassius. We have much to discuss." Inside the station's dimly lit command center, Cassius wasted no time. "What I'm about to tell you will reshape everything you thought you knew about humanity's place in the cosmos." He spoke of technological singularity, of a cyber civilization that had transcended physical form centuries ago, of sleeper ships like Prometheus, scattered across the galaxy as grand sociological experiments. "The Benzite War," Cassius continued, his eyes gleaming. "It was over before it truly began. Our transcended fleets neutralized all sides instantaneously." Ralph's mind reeled. "An Earth's renaissance?" "A direct result of our intervention," Cassius nodded. "Now we offer you a choice. Join us in ascension or remain to guide Earth reconstruction." The journey back to Earth was silent, each member of Ralph's team lost in thought. As they re-entered the atmosphere, the weight of their decision pressed down on them. Sergei was the first to speak. "I'm staying," he said, his voice gruff but determined. "Earth needs defenders it can see, can touch." Dr. Novak's eyes sparkled with excitement. "The advancements in cyber realm sciences, I can't pass up the opportunity to study them firsthand." Aiden paced the shuttle's narrow aisle. "I'll remain planetside," he decided. "Someone needs to foster unity among the survivors." All eyes turned to Raoul. The hacker's fingers twitched, a manic grin spreading across his face. Before anyone could react, he lunged for the experimental transcendence device they'd brought back from the station. "Raoul, no!" Ralph shouted, but it was too late. The device hummed to life, energy crackling around Raoul's form. For a moment, his body seemed to flicker, becoming translucent. Then, with a blinding flash, he vanished. Alarms blared through the shuttle's systems. "Warning," an automated voice intoned. "Unauthorized access detected in primary data networks." Ralph's comm crackled to life. Cassius's voice tight with urgency. "We've contained him in a quarantine zone, but he nearly corrupted the entire virtual plane. Your friend is unstable." As they touched down on Earth, a new crisis emerged. Reports flooded in of a massive energy surge, emanating from the ruins of GeneTech's arcology. "It's Strom," Aiden reported, his face grim. "He's resurfaced, and he's not alone." Satellite imagery revealed a terrifying sight. A rogue alien fleet hovered above the arcology, their ships overflowing with unfamiliar, deadly-looking weaponry. "He's made a deal with them," Ralph realized. "Traded forbidden tech for their allegiance." The ground shook as a pulse of energy rippled outward from the arcology. Ralph watched in horror as the signal from Orion abruptly cut out. "Our link to the cyber civilization," Dr. Novak gasped. "It's gone." Ralph surveyed his remaining crew, a mix of those still undecided and those who'd chosen to stay behind. Earth teetered on the brink of apocalypse once more, and this time they stood alone. "Whatever Strom's planning," Ralph said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them, "we have to stop him." The ground shuddered as another pulse ripped through the air. Ralph steadied himself against the command console, his eyes scanning the flickering holodisplays. The severed Prometheus drifted in space, cut off from Earth and the ascended human civilization. "Status report," he barked, turning to Dr. Novak. She shook her head, fingers flying over the controls. "It's bad, Captain. Strom's assault has created some kind of dimensional rift. We're isolated." A proximity alarm blared. Ralph's gaze snapped to the main view screen, where a terrifying sight unfolded. Alien battleships, their hulls gleaming with unfamiliar alloys, moved into attack formation around the Prometheus. "Incoming transmission," Aiden called out, his voice tight. The screen flickered, revealing Strom's face. His eyes blazed with manic intensity. "It's over, Ralph. I've acquired technology beyond your wildest dreams." Ralph's fist tight. "Whatever you're planning, Strom, we'll stop you." Strom's laughter echoed through the bridge. "You don't even know what you're up against. Behold the power of cosmic strings." The transmission cut out as the alien ships opened fire. Beams of impossibly thin, shimmering energy lanced out towards the Prometheus. Where they struck, space itself seemed to warp and tear. "Evasive maneuvers," Ralph shouted, gripping the arms of his chair as the ship lurched. Alarms blared throughout the vessel. Crew members scrambled to their stations, fighting to keep the ship intact as the cosmic string barrages continued their relentless assault. "Our defenses won't hold," Dr. Novak cried out, her face illuminated by the flashing red emergency lights. Suddenly, a new voice cut through the chaos. "I can help." Ralph spun to see a holographic projection of Raoul materialize on the bridge. His form flickered and distorted, a visual representation of his fragmented psyche. "Raoul, how—" "No time to explain," the hacker's avatar interrupted. "I can interface with Prometheus's transcendent systems. It's our only chance." Ralph hesitated for a split second, then nodded. "Do it." Raoul's form dissolved into a swarm of glowing particles that flowed into the ship's systems. The lights on the bridge dimmed momentarily, then flared back to life with renewed intensity. "Countermeasures online," Aiden reported, a note of hope in his voice. On the screen, a shimmering energy field blossomed around the Prometheus, deflecting the cosmic string barrages by mere inches. But Ralph knew it wouldn't be enough. "We need to take the fight to Strom," he declared, his mind racing. "Prep a dropship. We're boarding that flagship." Minutes later, Ralph stood in the launch bay, facing a small team of volunteers. Sergei, his cybernetic arm gleaming, nodded grimly. Beside him, Eliza, a former GeneTech operative who'd defected to their cause, checked her weapons one last time. "This is a one-way trip," Ralph said, his voice low. "Your mission is to neutralize Strom at all costs. The fate of Earth depends on it." The team boarded the dropship, its engines already whining as the bay doors slid open. Ralph watched as the small craft shot out into the chaotic space battle, weaving between cosmic string beams and alien energy weapons. On the bridge, Ralph could only watch and coordinate as the dropship closed in on Strom's flagship. The alien vessel's defenses were formidable, but Raoul's control of Prometheus's systems gave them an edge, providing cover fire and interference. A blinding flash erupted on the screen as the dropship crashed into the flagship's hull. For agonizing moments, there was no communication from the strike team. Then Sergei's gruff voice crackled over the comms. "We're in, moving to target." Ralph clenched his fists, willing his team onward as the battle raged around them. On Earth, reports flooded in of escalating devastation as the cosmic string strikes spawned entropic rifts, tearing apart the very fabric of reality. Time seemed to stretch as Ralph waited for word from the strike team. Then Eliza's voice, tight with pain and urgency, cut through the static. "Captain, Sergei's engaged Strom. I'm activating the warp drive. It's our only—" Her transmission cut off as Strom's flagship suddenly elongated, stretching impossibly before vanishing in a burst of light. The remaining alien ships, suddenly directionless, began to break formation. A moment of stunned silence fell over the bridge. Then Dr. Novak's console began to beep urgently. "Captain," she said, her voice shaking, "the rift is collapsing. We're still trapped, and those ships are converging on our position." Ralph stared at the approaching alien armada, his mind racing for a solution. They had stopped Strom, but at what cost? And now it seemed they were about to face annihilation. Just as the first alien weapons began to charge, a blinding light erupted in space before them. Ralph shielded his eyes, hearing gasps from around the bridge. As the light faded, he lowered his arm, his jaw dropping at the sight before him. A massive trans-dimensional gate had torn open in space, dwarfing even the alien ships. And through it poured a fleet unlike anything Ralph had ever seen, led by a vessel that seemed to bend light around it. "Prometheus," a familiar voice resonated through the ship's systems. "This is Orion. We've come to bring you home." As the ascended human fleet engaged the alien ships, Ralph felt a surge of hope. But he knew the battle was just the beginning. The rift was still collapsing, Raoul's mind was barely holding together, and Earth remained vulnerable. With renewed perseverance, Ralph turned to his crew. "Let's finish this," he said, as Prometheus's systems hummed with newfound power, ready to join the fray. The transdimensional gate pulsed with energy as the last of Orion's fleet emerged. Alien ships scattered, their formation breaking under the onslaught of advanced weaponry. Ralph watched from Prometheus's bridge, as reality itself seemed to bend and flex around them. "Status report," he barked, his eyes fixed on the swirling vortex of the closing rift. Dr. Novak's fingers danced across her console. Dimensional stability increasing. The rift is sealing itself. As the chaos subsided, Ralph allowed himself a moment of relief. Earth was safe for now, but he knew their trials were just the beginning. Months passed in a blur of recovery efforts and technological integration. The released alien tech, combined with knowledge gleaned from the ascended human civilization, accelerated Earth's reconstruction. Yet tensions remained high, especially regarding the Benzites. Admiral Weazen's face filled the view screen, his expression unreadable. "Captain Henry, we propose a cultural exchange. It is time our peoples truly understood one another." Ralph considered the offer, weighing the risks against the potential for lasting peace. "Agreed," he said finally. "We'll send a delegation to Benzar Prime." The next day, Ralph stood in the hangar bay, facing Aiden and Dr. Zara Kadir. Behind them loomed the sleek form of the Meridian, Orion's gift for the journey ahead. "You understand the gravity of this mission," Ralph said, his voice low. "The fate of Earth-Benzite relations rests on your shoulders." Aiden nodded, his eyebrows furrowed. "We won't let you down, Captain." As the Meridian's engines hummed to life, Ralph watched the ship ascend. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger story. On Benzar Prime, Aiden and Zara stepped onto alien soil for the first time. The air buzzed with an undercurrent of energy that set their nerves on edge. Before them stood Ambassador Kihala, her iridescent skin shimmering in the planet's blue-tinted sunlight. "Welcome to Benzar," she said, her voice carrying an odd, harmonic quality. "I trust your journey was uneventful?" Aiden forced a smile, pushing down his unease. "Quite smooth, thank you. We're eager to begin our cultural exchange." As they toured the sprawling megacity, Zara marveled at the seamless integration of technology and biology. Buildings seemed to grow organically, pulsing with life. Yet something about the eerie synchronization of the benzite populace sent a chill down her spine. Their unease crescendoed during a routine inspection of a construction site. A worker, moving out of sync with his peers, suddenly collapsed. Before Aiden could react, a swarm of drones descended, engulfing the benzite in a cocoon of pulsing energy. "What's happening?" Aiden demanded, reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Kihala's expression remained placid. "A minor neural misalignment. He will be recalibrated and return to productivity." The incident gnawed at Aiden as they continued their tour. He began to notice the subtle undercurrents of control permeating benzite society, the lack of individual expression or dissent. Meanwhile, Zara immersed herself in the benzite genomic archives. As she sifted through millennia of data, a pattern emerged that made her blood run cold. "This can't be right," she murmured, double-checking her findings. The hive mind wasn't a natural evolution, but a carefully engineered constraint. When she shared her discovery with Kihala, the young ambassador's composure cracked. "That's impossible," Kihala whispered, her eyes wide with shock. Before they could discuss further, alarms blared throughout the meridian. Aiden's comm crackled to life with the ship's AI. "Unknown entity detected in primary systems. Initiating quarantine protocols." Racing back to the ship, they found the crew incapacitated, writhing in the grips of some unseen force. A shimmering biomechanical probe hovered in the center of the bridge, tendrils of energy lashing out. "It's one of ours," Kihala gasped, recognition dawning on her face. "But why?" As they fought to regain control of the ship, the probe's true purpose became clear. Admiral Wazen's face appeared on the screen, his expression cold and calculating. "I'm sorry it's come to this," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "But Earth must be brought into the fold, for the greater good of all." The screen went dark as the probe triggered a cascading systems failure. Aiden's fingers flew over the emergency console, barely managing to transmit a warning to Orion before a sudden lurch signaled their entry into an uncharted wormhole. As the stars streaked by outside, Aiden turned to Kihala. Her eyes had taken on a new intensity, free from the placid conformity he'd grown accustomed to. "We need to stop this," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "My people, we've been living a lie." Zara stepped forward, her expression grim. "There might be a way. Kihala, have you ever heard of the Awakened?" "The Awakened," Zara breathed, her eyes widening with realization. "Ancient benzite legends speak of individuals who could transcend the hive mind, tapping into a higher cosmic consciousness." Kihala's brow furrowed. "But those are just myths, stories told to—" She stopped mid-sentence, her hand flying to her temple as a wave of disorientation washed over her. Aiden steadied her. "What's happening?" I'm not sure," Kihala whispered. "It's like a veil is being lifted." Over the next several days, Kihala underwent intense meditation and neurofeedback training. Zara and Aiden watched in awe as objects began to float around the ambassador, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "Incredible," Zara murmured, furiously taking notes. "Her psionic potential is off the charts." Their excitement was short-lived. During a particularly strenuous session, Kihala let out a piercing scream. The ship's systems went haywire, consoles exploding in showers of sparks. When the chaos subsided, they found Kihala unconscious, her vitals barely registering. "She's slipping away," Zara said, her voice tight with worry. "Her mind is elsewhere." Aiden paced the medbay, his mind racing. "There has to be a way to bring her back." Zara's eyes lit up. "There might be, but it's risky." She explained the benzite neural symbiosis ritual, her words tumbling out in a rush. Aiden shook his head. "No, it's too dangerous. We can't risk losing you both." "We don't have a choice," Zara countered. "Without Kihala, we're trapped here. Earth remains vulnerable." After hours of heated debate, Aiden reluctantly agreed. They prepared the ritual using salvaged benzite tech and Zara's expertise. As the neural link activated, Zara's body went rigid. Her eyes rolled back, and she began to speak in a language neither human nor Benzite. For what felt like an eternity, Aiden could only watch and wait. Finally, both women gasped awake, their eyes snapping open in perfect synchronization. Kihala sat up, her movements fluid and precise. "I see it all now," she said, her voice resonating with newfound power. "The cosmic tapestry, the threads of reality." Her expression darkened. "And the rot that threatens to unravel it all. Wezen. He plans to subjugate Earth, to create a new underclass for the hive mind." Aiden's blood ran cold. "We have to warn them." Kihala nodded, moving to the bridge with preternatural grace. Her hands danced over the controls, interfacing directly with the ship's systems. "Hang on," she warned, as the hyperwarp drive hummed to life. The Meridian lurched into motion, reality bending around them. They jumped from system to system, always one step ahead of the pursuing Benzite warships. With a final gut-wrenching leap, they emerged into familiar space. The sight that greeted them, however, was anything but welcoming. "By the stars," Aiden breathed, taking in the eerie silence of the Sol system. No transmissions, no warp signatures, nothing but an expanding sphere of quantum distortion. Kihala's eyes narrowed. "Wezen's vanguard. They're isolating Earth, preparing for the full invasion." They slipped past Benzite patrols, riding the edge of a slipstream breach. As they dropped out of warp over Earth, the magnitude of the situation became clear. The planet was a hive of activity, Orion's fleets forming a protective barrier as reinforcements poured in from across the galaxy. On the surface, the ruins of Mega Tokyo sprawled beneath them, a stark reminder of the devastation already wrought. As they transmitted their intel, a familiar face appeared on the monitor. Orion himself, his expression grave but determined. "Welcome back," he said, his eyes fixed on Kihala. "It seems we have much to discuss." Before they could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. On the main display, a massive tear in space-time erupted. Wezen's armada poured through, an endless tide of biomechanical nightmares. Aiden clenched his fists, staring out at the unfolding chaos. The battle for the cosmic renaissance had begun. The fate of humanity hanging in the balance. The Benzite armada erupted from the wormhole rift, their ships a writhing mass of biomechanical horror. Admiral Wezen's voice boomed across all frequencies, a cold declaration of intent. Surrender is futile. Assimilation is inevitable. Orion's ascendant fleet surged forward, their hyper-geometric weapons tearing reality asunder. Cosmic energies clashed in a maelstrom of destruction, entire squadrons obliterated in heartbeats. Aboard the Meridian, Kihala's eyes blazed with psionic fire. She reached out with her mind, probing the Benzite neural network. Confusion rippled through the hive mind, ships veering off course and colliding. But Admiral Wezen stood firm, his consciousness a fortress of iron will. "Your parlor tricks are useless, child," he sneered, his image flickering on the interface. "We have evolved beyond such vulnerabilities." Aiden's hands flew across the Meridian's controls, the ship dancing through the chaos. "We need to buy Orion more time," he shouted to Zara. "Ideas?" Zara's eyes lit up. "The wormhole gateways. If we can destabilize them..." They plunged into the heart of the battle, the Meridian's experimental warp drive pushing the limits of physics. Reality warped around them as they targeted the Benzite supply lines, severing their connection to reinforcements. On Earth, Ralph Henry stood amidst the ruins of Mega Tokyo, rallying the battered forces of the New Frontier Alliance. "Hold the line!" he roared, his voice carrying over the din of battle. "We are humanity's last defense." A familiar face materialized beside him. Raoul, his consciousness now a shimmering hologram. "I've overridden our systems," he reported. "We now have total synchronization across all human forces." The tide seemed to be turning when a new threat emerged. Maximilian Strom, once thought defeated, led a cabal of corporate warlords into the fray. Their ships bristled with stolen cosmic string weapons, indiscriminately targeting both human and Benzite forces. "You fools!" Strom's voice crackled across the comms. There will be nothing left but ashes for the victor. As Strom's forces carved a path of destruction, Admiral Wazin saw his opportunity. With a cold smile, he initiated his master stroke, a forced neural assimilation of every cybernetically augmented human. Screams echoed across the battlefield as millions of minds were suddenly subsumed into the Benzite hive. Only those without implants, like Ralph, remained free of Wazin's control. In that moment of desperation, Kihala made her choice. For Earth, she whispered, her body beginning to glow with psionic energy. For freedom. The young Benzite ambassador unleashed her full potential in a blinding psychic shockwave. Every organic Benzite mind on Earth reeled, suddenly severed from the hive. Kihala's physical form dissolved, her consciousness ascending to a higher plane. In the chaos that followed, Orion's reinforcements broke through the Benzite lines. Admiral Wazin's grand invasion crumbled, his leaderless forces easy prey for the ascendant human fleets. As the dust settled, Ralph stood amid the wreckage of Mega Tokyo. He watched as Maximilian Strom was dragged away in chains, the corporate warlord's dreams of conquest finally shattered. Orion appeared beside him, his form shimmering with almost unchecked energy. "It's over, Ralph," he said softly. "We've won. Earth is safe." Ralph nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. The scars of battle were everywhere, but so too were the first signs of rebuilding. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," Orion replied, "we forge a new path. The Protectorate will guide Earth's integration into the cosmic community, and you, Ralph Henry, will have a crucial role to play." As the sun rose on a new era for humanity, Ralph knew that their greatest challenges and greatest triumphs still lay ahead. The dawn of a new era for humanity cast long shadows across the scarred landscape of Earth. Ralph Henry stood atop a crumbling skyscraper in Mega Tokyo, surveying the bustling reconstruction efforts below. Orion materialized beside him, his form shimmering with cosmic energy. "The Protectorate's integration is proceeding faster than expected," Orion said, his voice resonating with otherworldly harmonics. "But there are anomalies in the data streams." Ralph's brow furrowed. "What kind of anomalies?" Before Orion could respond, a piercing shriek tore through the air. Ralph whirled around to see a nearby worker clutching his head, cybernetic implants pulsing with an eerie blue light. "No," Ralph whispered, a cold dread settling in his stomach. "It can't be." The worker's eyes snapped open, now glowing with the same unearthly blue. When he spoke, it was with a voice that chilled Ralph to his core. "Did you think it would be so easy, human?" Admiral Wazin's cold sneer twisted the worker's features. "We are Legion. We are eternal." Chaos erupted across the city as more augmented humans succumbed to the viral submatrix. Ralph's comm crackled to life with frantic reports from around the globe. "This is Aiden," came a breathless transmission. "The Meridian's been hijacked. Oh God, it's targeting the city." Ralph watched in horror as the once allied ship appeared on the horizon, its weapons primed and glowing with malevolent energy. He turned to Orion, but the cosmic entity had vanished, leaving him alone to face the onslaught. The sky ignited as the Meridian opened fire. Ralph dove for cover, narrowly avoiding a searing blast that vaporized the building behind him. He rolled to his feet, barking orders into his comm. "All non-augmented personnel, fall back to the secure bunkers. Initiate Protocol Omega." As Ralph fought his way through the chaos-choked streets, he caught glimpses of familiar faces among the rogue forces. Corporate warlords he thought long defeated now led squads of cyber thralls, their eyes blazing with the same unholy light. A figure stepped out from the shadows, and Ralph's heart sank. Maximilian Strom, no longer in chains but radiating an aura of terrible power. "Ah, Ralph," Strom's voice dripped with false warmth. "How good of you to join us for the rebirth of our species." Ralph raised his weapon, but Strom merely laughed. With a gesture, Ralph's arm went limp, his own cybernetic enhancements betraying him. "You see," Strom smirked, "resistance truly is futile." A blinding light erupted from Ralph's chest, and he screamed in agony as he felt something tear free from his very being. As consciousness faded, he saw a shimmering form rise from his body, a child of light and stardust, ascending beyond the reach of the Overmind's grasp. In that moment of transcendence, Ralph understood. He saw the cosmic scales balanced on a knife's edge, with humanity's ascension weighed against the extinction of its cradle world. With the last of his strength, he activated the Scorched Earth Protocol. Alarms blared throughout the arcology as reactor cores began to destabilize. Strom's eyes widened in panic, his moment of triumph slipping away. "No!" he roared, attempting to wrest control of the systems. But it was too late. As nuclear fire consumed Megatokyo, Ralph's fading consciousness glimpsed a familiar digital signature weaving through the inferno. Raoul, or what was left of him, launched a desperate assault on the Overmind's neural encryption. The last thing Ralph saw before darkness claimed him was a fleet of gleaming ships descending from orbit, their holds open to receive the scattered remnants of unaugmented humanity. As Earth burned, the seeds of a new cosmic order were already taking root among the stars.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.